It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
Hey guys, how is it going? And welcome to the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. It is Thursday, September 28th, and so happy for you joining us. We are ready to start another day together with the Lord. So subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on SoundCloud, and make sure to support us on Patreon. So today we have an exciting podcast for you. We have sermons in the sky, QNA Thursday, and of course commentaries, updates, and news on what is happening around the world in this history today. All right, everyone. Yes, it is Thursday. We're getting to the end of the week. I'm super excited and happy because tonight I am heading to Atlanta. I'm super excited about this. For those of you guys out there who haven't done this yet, go ahead, leave a like and comment to build our community. Just super happy for everyone joining us every weekday on the Morning Star Drive. So let's get up and support each other each and every day. This week's Sunday message title is Learn From Me, Testify. All right. So yes, it is Thursday in Asia, but it's still Wednesday for me. So I have service tonight, and also I'll be heading out to Atlanta for the soccer tournament. So I'm excited about that too. I just got back from a fresh haircut, so I'm you know how it is. You look good, you feel good. I don't know what it is. We all know it, that if you're wearing a really nice suit or wearing nice clothes, you just feel more confident, right? So I just got a haircut, so I feel a lot more confident and better too. I will be going to the service after Wednesday service and going to the airport after Wednesday service. And this will be my last day doing this podcast in Vancouver for the next 10 days, which basically means tomorrow's podcast and all of next week will be done in Atlanta, Georgia. So super excited to go and meet all the guys over there. It's going to be an amazing time. I'm going to keep you guys updated on my Instagram account. So yeah, I knew this was going to happen, but I don't think I was prepared in my heart for it. But they're like, they asked me like, hey, when you arrive on Thursday, can you lecture newcomers on the day I arrive in Atlanta? And I was like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore, right? And I was kind of against it. In my heart, no, not my heart. It was like probably my body like going, oh, Sky, you're not ready for this kind of thing. But then my heart, or I guess you could say my soul was like, man, this is the week of testimony, right? So you should do, as the Holy Spirit leads. And I was just like, oh gosh, but I already know what the Holy Spirit wants. And I don't know if I really want to do this kind of thing. So, but yeah, in my heart, I'm like, this would be great to do a Bible study again, especially with such an introduction Bible study like Peter and the fish. You know what I mean? Like this is actually one of the very first Bible studies I ever taught. And it's one that I prepared so much for like 25 years ago, right? So I love this lesson. And when I was first taught this lesson, it was like my first lesson. And the reason why I had to teach, because I was the campus leader because I'm the only one on my campus. And when I finally evangelized someone, the pastor obviously was busy because they had 4 or 5 campuses to lecture on, and they told me to do it. And I was like, "What? You want me to do it?" So I was like, I would listen to 3 or 4 different lectures. I listened to 2 people live, and I listened to another 2 people on cassette tapes. So those of you guys who don't know what that is, yes, I was listening to a couple lectures on cassette tapes. And then I was listening to all these lectures, taking my own notes, and eventually, I made my lecture. I did it. And I don't. If you guys haven't heard this testimony before, the very first time I taught a lesson, which was Peter the fish, this Mexican guy, I sat down with him, I talked to him, and then when we talked, the moment when you're like, the fish is symbolizing people, this person's eyes just lit up. And the eyes didn't just light up. I swear, the feeling was the heavens open, angels were singing, there was a light shining upon me, and that's actually the first time that I I made that choice to live for this history for the rest of my life. It was the first time I was like, man, I could do this for the rest of my life kind of thing. So, and one thing that's kind of cool is as I was living my life more and more in this history, I realized that I was actually living the Peter and the fish life. I was a missionary for like 8-9 years, right? And I realized, like, think about this. I traveled around the world like 2-3 times. My salary was like $300 to $400 a month. And I did that for 8 to 9 years. So if you think about this, it is impossible to do that on that type of salary. But it all happened because it was basically Peter and the fish, casting out my line into the lake and catching fish. Like that's, it was unbelievable. Like, cause when I first went to the UK, I was on that time I was on like 500 pounds, and that of the 500 pounds, it was like 300 of it was my rent. As crazy as that sounds, right? And I only had that for 3 months, and that's it. And I really just evangelized for like 3, 4, 5 months. And we started to evangelize more and more people. And eventually the church became like self-sustainable. And then the church paid me much more than that. And then I didn't get paid by Sunseam at all from that point on. Right? So, when you see that, Peter the fish is, if you cast that line, you'll find the 2 drachma coin in its mouth. Whenever I teach this lesson, I always testify like, yeah, it actually happened to me. All I've done during those 8 to 9 years as missionary is just evangelism, just casting my lines, teaching and lecturing, meeting people and bringing them into this history. That's all I did. And I was able to survive. Right? So, I was living the life of Peter and the fish. And that I think that's one of the things that makes these lessons even more powerful is if you've actually done it. And if you actually do it and you're like, whoa, this is the life that this is actually truth, right? And that's why I always testify about my 8 years in missions work. And I talk about all the times where people provided when I had nothing. There's one time in England, I had almost $0 left. I just had enough for like transportation. I barely had enough for food to go out and eat when I'm teaching, lecturing, and like going out to evangelize. And crazy part was there was an elder at that time who met me at the Starbucks. Yes, guys, I did go to Starbucks back then, but he met me at the Starbucks and he talked to me, and then he just gave me like 150 pounds. And he just was inspired. And that was a time I was like I was like, oh my gosh, now I can eat something. Like there's so many times when things like that actually happened. And I can never complain to God because I've never not had what I needed. Right? And I that's something I'm very, very grateful and thankful for. And it was me just living the life of Peter, casting out the line and stuff like that too. So that is one of the testimonies I always bring up when it comes to Peter and the fish. So like I think I'm going to lecture. And I think they're going to be listening to this podcast too, but I think I'm going to lecture. I think I am. Yeah, either way. Remember I told you about that video I saw on YouTube? I told you guys, I left the link in the description about that football player, the American football player that testified after a game, like basically gave an entire sermon for the post-game interviews, right? I was watching another video, and this guy is like super famous. He's in the Hall of Fame, one of the best American football players ever. His name is Deion Sanders, okay? And those of you guys in America, you probably have all heard of him. And right now, he is the most popular coach in college football. And I was watching one of his interviews. And it's very interesting because here he is, super famous, made millions and millions of dollars. And he was doing an interview. And he was talking about how he doesn't curse, he doesn't drink, he doesn't do drugs. He's very, very clean, right? And there's this question that came up to him. And he was asked, because, he's someone who coaches students not to just play football, but he wants to mentor them so that they're professionals in life too, right? So the question came up from the interviewer, and he said, for these college kids, imagine they're your kids too. And he asked Deion Sanders, who is the person that they should look up to on and off the field? And straight up, Deion Sanders says, Jesus. He says, Jesus. They should look up to Jesus. And he went on talking about Jesus and about life for like the next 20, 30 minutes and about Jesus and how great Jesus is. And I was inspired to see there's these people who have these platforms, professionals, Hall of Famers, people that are so famous using their platforms to preach and testify, right? And I think it's really encouraging when you see these famous people that are uncorrupted using their platforms to talk about faith, to talk about Jesus. And it's really empowering. And I hope it inspires more people to just, not be afraid and preach. Talk about Jesus. Talk about why your faith is so important to you, right? Faith is not just a personal part of our life. It is our life that no one can take away. And it's something that identifies who we are. We are Christians, believers, followers of Christ, right? And in order for us to do this, we have to be unafraid and unashamed, right? And when I look at these football players who are in the spotlight and they are unashamed, unabashful, straight up, this is what I believe, this is who I follow, I'm going to preach to you right now kind of thing, it should make people who, make all of us feel even more comfortable with our faith and more comfortable preaching on platforms and not feeling like we're going to get judged or not. Think about this. Most of us here are not famous. So even if we preached on the internet or whatever it is, it wouldn't really affect our lives. It wouldn't, because not many people are going to be looking at your thing, right? At your social media, whatever it is. And most of the people looking at your Instagram or YouTube, whatever it is, most of them are actually people who know you. They're your friends. I don't feel like there has to be something that limits you from preaching, right? And when I thought about this, it's and these are people that are scrutinized under the microscope, and they're still talking about Jesus. And it kind of makes us think to ourselves, do we really have an excuse? Do we really, really have an excuse? Actually, the funny thing is, I was with the campus kids yesterday too, and we were talking about these really famous, successful people. I'm not sure if you guys know who David Goggins is. He is just Navy SEAL, Jocko Willink, Navy SEAL, and they're, we talked about these guys and how extreme and how amazing these people are, and these guys are doing the same thing. They're waking up at 4 a.m. every day. Right? And, we were talking about it and we all kind of agreed, can anyone really complain about waking up for pre-dawn when you see these worldly people understanding how important it is to wake up early, and they'll wake up early. Deion Sanders says, I wake up every day at 4:40. I wake up at 4:40, I go to work, and then I do my quiet time. I pray, I find scriptures, I find something to tell the kids about kind of thing. So here he is. He has to mentor his football team, and he goes straight to the Bible to find it, right? So I was thinking we shouldn't be that afraid, really, because we're not even under the microscope. People aren't going to be even looking or listening to our stuff. Even today, did you guys see in the comment section? Sometimes you're going to find this random person that's who doesn't, who's not a member of the church, but they'll just say something really, really weird. This guy straight up says, "What is this BS?" Right? I'm not sure if this is a member or not. Is this a member? Because I'm guessing this person's a non-member, because they're asking what is this BS, and this person is So this person, his name is Wildflower. So this is just a regular person, not from our church, but they just stumble upon this podcast. They're what is this BS? And of course I'd answer BS meaning Bible study, right? But I was just we're public. This channel is public, even though it's only for us. Every once in a while, you're going to find someone coming into this channel hey, what is this thing? And some people like it, some people won't. You know what I mean? So I think just the fact that we're public here is a good testament that, we're open. We're open to what we teach. We're open to what we believe in. And I think that's something that we should all kind of take into consideration. I think one of the great things about social media or these channels, a lot of the times people don't even need to show their faces. You could just talk about it, right? And in most cases, it's actually really hard to get a large audience. It is. It's hard to get a large audience. And I think that's something that you guys kind of, oh no, what if someone sees it? And the answer is, so what if someone sees it? So what if someone hears it? What does that mean? Does that mean that all of a sudden your life is over? No, right? In most cases here, the people who listen are going to listen. The people who don't, uninterested, they're just going to pass by it, because that's what normally happens for YouTube channels. People only listen to the things that they like to listen to. They don't like it, they don't like it. They'll leave a comment like this guy says, "What is this BS?" I'm like, yeah, that's fine. I have no problems with people like outside listening to this. And in most cases, I think it's correct when he says, "What is this BS?" Because he doesn't know anything that we believe in, right? So when he listens to it, he's like, "What the heck is this?" kind of thing, right? So it makes sense to me too. He doesn't know that this was made for our church kind of thing, right? So, I found it quite funny, but I found it funny, and that's why I responded with the funny response too. Guys, did you guys hear? I know in the last Friday prayer meeting, they talked about the new internet ministry contest or something along that line, right? It's like there will be some contest for creating social media and teaching people about this history, whatever it is, or the teachings, right? And I talked to the person in charge, and they are getting all the guidelines for the contest set up soon. So I hope this contest will be really cool, and it inspires a ton of people to start their channels. And I am looking forward to work on my channel even more, because, when you have a contest, and especially being a guy, that competitive juice starts to come out. And when that competitive juice starts to come out, I'm like, ooh, I want to win this type of thing, and I'm going to work extra hard on it also. So I'm looking forward to that too. And I hope that, we too can encourage people in the right way to make successful channels. But I can't wait till this contest comes out. And I'm going to, we should do, like some of the foreign countries should get together and do something like that too, so they can encourage a ton of people to start doing social media or channels to spread the gospel or spread the teachings and stuff like that also, according to your country's style. But I'm looking forward to that contest too. I'm not sure about you guys. I know when I looked at, what was it? Was it last week's poll? It was about how they want to do internet ministry. And there's a bunch of people that actually said they wanted to start some type of internet ministry or channel, right? To preach and stuff like that. So I think that would be really inspiring for a lot of people if there was, a lot of support from their countries and stuff like that too. Which brings us into this week's poll, right? What do you want to focus on with the remaining 3 months? Well, yeah, it's going to be about 3 months left. And the 49%, so about half the people, are very focused on prayer. And I'm going to say that is awesome. 49% of the people focusing on prayer, and I hope that prayer goes out fiery, because we can make a lot of changes through prayer. In second, it is to testify. Right? Testify, lecturing, preaching, social media, whatever it is, that's 24%, so a quarter. So if you look at prayer and testifying, that is like 3/4 of the listeners are going to focus on those two things. And then after that is evangelism at 17%, which is a big group of people too. And then taking care of others is another 8%. So that's already over 70 people that have voted on this, but I'm looking forward to seeing how we're going to do over the next 3 months. Right? I think all of us are kind of looking forward to, seeing what's going to happen. Now, yesterday I did say that, with 3 months left, it's not only God that's going to be working hard on us, right? Like working hard to make great things happen, but Satan's going to work really hard too. So I have an update on Sunsim's trial, right? So you're going to be like, oh, there's an update. Yeah, it just came out. Okay. And remember, we filed a judicial recusal. A judicial recusal, right? That's why this has been postponed. The first one was denied, so we appealed, and the result just came out. The appeal was also denied or dismissed, right? So the application for judicial recusal from this trial was once again dismissed. Okay, so this report came on the 27th from the Daejeon High Court, and they rejected the request by our lawyers to recuse, for the judge to recuse himself from the bench against presiding, right? Who is trying to, who is basically the judge for this case, and under the Criminal Procedure Act. So this is more of a procedural thing that's the reason why it's dismissed. A request to recuse a judge is a system in which the prosecutor or defendant requests the judge to be excluded from performing his or her duties when there is concern that the judge may conduct an unfair trial. Now, the court stated the reason for dismissal by saying, the appellant's reason for requesting to recuse himself from this case, it does not fall under when there is concern that a judge will conduct an unfair trial as defined in the Criminal Procedure Act. So under the definition, it does not what's happening right now is not considered unfair. Right, it doesn't. So that's why they dismissed it. So the application for recusal dismissed again. So and it's unclear whether the trial will resume, because now there is 7 days for the lawyers of Sunstein to reappeal. What does that mean? It means going to the Supreme Court. So the first one was dismissed, then we appealed. That is dismissed, and now we have 7 days to take it to the Supreme Court, right? So we're not gonna, since it was the 27th where this news came out, we're gonna have to wait 1 week until next Wednesday to see if we actually take it all the way to the Supreme Court or not. So that should be quite interesting to see too, if we're gonna actually file another motion, right? So yeah, so that's the latest news. The judicial recusal has been dismissed, and that happened actually on July 26th, which is a Tuesday, which means that we have until next Monday to take it to the Supreme Court or not. That should be quite interesting to see if we actually do that. If it's already denied twice, I wonder if it's worth it for us to do it or not, or just go straight back into the trial again, since we have a lot of other stuff in there. For instance, there is the complaints about the investigators putting in false documentation or not checking the audio file or destroying of evidence, plus, the Netflix audio file being fake, right? So we have a bunch of other stuff that's on our side too. So it should be quite interesting to see how this case goes on. I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't take it to the Supreme Court. Just my feeling is. That's what my feeling is. But that is the latest news that just came out, right? And last but not least, I talked about this yesterday, but I had some calls come in about people asking me, "Oh my gosh, did KJS, did Joan get sentenced for 15 years? Did Kyla get sentenced for 3 years? Did this all happen?" And the answer is everything that I've read shows that it didn't happen. It's just the prosecution is requesting to the judge that AJ gets 15 years, 3 others get 10 years, another person gets 5 years, and Kyla gets 3 years. And she gets the lowest because she was the one that admitted guilt, right? So remember, this is a trial for aiding and abetting, right? So, like I say, and like I said this before, it doesn't really make any sense that you can have a trial finish for aiding and abetting when the actual person who's on trial for the crime hasn't even concluded, right? So the thing that, example is, if Sunseem is innocent, then how can these people be tried for aiding and abetting when he's innocent and nothing happened? You know what I mean? So this is for this trial, aiding and abetting. The 15 years is not actual sentencing. They are waiting for the final sentence from the judge. The prosecutors, so it looks like the trial is coming to an end. So the prosecutors are saying, we recommend that this person gets 15. These 3 people get 10. This person gets 5. This person gets 3. And now the judge is going to take that into consideration and come up with the final ruling. So I'm not sure exactly when it will come out. I don't know. Maybe it's possible as early as next week. Possibly. We don't know, right? But that is the news that I know. If it was actually sentenced, I think there would be much bigger news about it than, us finding out through the news itself, right? So at the moment, just know that there is no sentence done. It was just the prosecution's recommendation on what to give each of those people. Okay? So that is what I know for sure right now. There was no sentencing actually done. We're waiting for the judge to give the final sentencing. All right? So that just wanted to make sure that was absolutely clear. So if anyone says, "Oh my gosh, she was sentenced," and the answer is no, she isn't, right? She's not sentenced. We're waiting for the judge to give the final sentencing, right? So I hope it's something that all of us will really be able to, keep in our minds when we're praying to. All right? So yeah, before we get into the first break, just know that today is QNA Thursday, so I will be going over 2 questions that were given. One from a new member, and one is from a member, and one is from a new member, just passed recently. All right, so let's get into the first break of the day. right. So let's get into today's word study. And of course, every Thursday we have Q&A Thursday. Always looking forward to this segment because I know a lot of people have these real questions and practical answers that they're looking for on how to answer these questions in their life and what does Sunsteam said about it? What does the Bible say about these different things, right? So I do have two questions, very, very interesting ones too. The first one comes from a newcomer, but a new member, someone who just realized as of recently. And the question they had is, looking at what is happening around the world today, are there any prophecies about like natural disasters or judgments happening at this time? Right? So this is kind of the newcomer question, all right? So I'm going to say yes, and yes, but I want to go a little bit more deeply into prophecy. So when a newcomer is asking about prophecies and being fulfilled, there are two different types of prophecies in the Bible that we have to take into consideration, okay? So first of all, if we go by the word itself, we know that 2023 is the last prophecy spoken of in the Bible, right? It's the last prophecy, meaning there's no other prophecies that come later than 2023, and it's supposed to be a very, very difficult time. Now, if you know history very well, what we're going to see is at the end of every the first, they have the first half history, second half history. At the very end, there's always judgment. For instance, an example is at the end of the 21 years of the first half of history, it was 1999. Right? And there was a time of judgment where a lot of different things happened. People left. It was shaken and things happened. And like I said, when you look at repeating history, even in 1999, the end of the first half, the second in command did the exact same thing that happened today. Right? It's not very... And even that is repeating history because when you look at the second in command, it's like John the Baptist. Right? Second in command is Elijah. And you see that there was a failure that happened time and time and time again. So the condition set for number 2 to fail has happened thrice, right? It's happened this 3 times already, right? So when we see this, we're like, oh yeah, this is a very, very difficult time. It's the end of the 21-year first half. And then now 2023 is the end of the second 21 years, the second half of history. So we once again go through, we had 21 years to work on everything. At the very end, we get judged for it, right? So 2023 is the last prophecy of the Bible, considered very difficult and a time of tribulation, okay? Now, once we know this historical part of it, the second part we do need to go over is I want to talk about the different types, the 2 different categories of prophecies in the Bible. Okay, so let me give you a couple verses to think about. The first one I want you to look at is Matthew chapter 24, verse 7, which Matthew 24 is the chapter on the Lord's second coming. So Jesus talks about famines, earthquakes in various places. These are all going to happen at the time of the Lord's second coming. Right? And this is something that, we're waiting for at the time of the Lord's second coming. So that's one type of prophecy. The second verse, quite interesting, is 2 Chronicles chapter 7, verse 13 and 14. And it says, God says, when I shut up the heavens so that there is no rain, or command the locust to devour the land, or send pestilence among my people, if my people who are called by my name humble themselves and pray and seek my face, and turn from their wicked ways, then I'll hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and heal their land, right? This is a different type of prophecy. And the thing is, can you tell the difference, right? Like even Psalm chapter 18, verse 6 and 7. In my distress, I called upon the Lord. To my God, I cried for help. From his temple, he heard my voice, and my cry to him reached his ears. Then the earth reeled and rocked. The foundations also of the mountains trembled and quaked because he was angry, right? So here we have 2 different types of prophecies we're looking at, okay? So one is what you call a perpetual prophecy, which means it's constant, ongoing, right? It's basically like a conditional statement. If you do this, then this will happen. If you do not do this, then this will not, and then this will happen instead. We have those if-then conditional statements. If you do this, if you follow the words of God, then you will be blessed. If you do not follow my commands, then you will be cursed, right? And that's the conditional statements because that never ends. It is perpetual. In any time of your life, when God's people turn away from him, they will be cursed, right? And it doesn't matter if it's 2024, 2030, The year 3000, whatever it is, that is perpetual. It's a conditional statement. It has to do with, it's more general, right? But it's perpetual. It goes on forever, right? Now, the second type is the one when the first verse I talked about was like Matthew 24, verse 7, which talks about the Lord's second coming, which means this is what you call a transitory prophecy, which means there's an end point. For instance, the prophecy of the Lord's second coming, that's only for the Lord's second coming. Once it's over, Lord's second coming's already come, it's all done, it's done, right? It has a date, it has an event, right? For instance, 2023, an absolute date, which means once 2023 is over, that transitory prophecy will never come back again because it's talking about 2023 and we're in 2024. Do you know what I mean? So there's two different types of prophecies that do come out in the Bible, and the judgments that we're receiving right now is probably a bit of both, because it does talk about 2023, this time of tribulation, and that's happening right now. And, but the Lord's second coming, and what's going to happen is you're going to have all these, natural disasters. But on top of it, it also has to do with the people of God or the people of the world who do not follow God's words, do not believe in God, and they're going to be facing these judgments, right? So, and if you want to go even deeper into it, just think about the message we got a month ago when Sussy talked about the judgment of water, the judgment of conscience. And if you want to know if something is a judgment of God, it's basically anything that is beyond reasonable or normal that is an act of God, like a judgment. For instance, the time of Noah, the flood was far beyond what a normal flood was, and it caused massive destruction. Fires, right? Like Sodom and Gomorrah, earthquakes that are extreme and not normal. And we know that, the way Sunsy put it is, if it's not reasonable, it's not what's normal. Is there flooding that happens? Yeah, there's, some regions, if it's by the waters, you're going to have flooding every year, right? You have the tectonic plates and the shifting. There's going to be some earthquakes coming here and there. But if you have one that's 9.1, you have 8 point something, or even the smaller ones that cause massive destruction, you know that it's beyond what is reasonable or beyond what is normal, and you know that's an act of God, right? And on top of it, not only is 2023 like a year of judgment, but at the end of 2023, in the year of judgment, we have the month of judgment, which is a judgment, right? And that happens every year. It happens at multiple different levels and scales, right? Every year on a smaller scale. In the month of December, we learn that that's the month of judgment, and it depends on people and what they've done in their life each and every day, right, for that year. So that's why when we answer these questions, I want to be a little bit more specific about it so that when you talk to your newcomers, it'll be a lot easier for them to understand, oh, okay, so this is a time where it's, what do you call it? It's not only just, 1 second, there's a fly. Not just a fly, there's a bug. Okay, where'd it go? Okay, either way, sorry. So, we could teach them about the perpetual prophecy, right? The if-then conditional statements, which is forever, right? Which makes sense. If you listen to the words of God, then you'll be blessed. If you don't, then you're cursed. It's a very conditional one, right? It's a very perpetual one. It never stops. So even after 2023, these perpetual prophecies are constantly ongoing. And then we'll have the transitory prophecies, which has a limitation. 2023 is about 2023, and then it's done. There's nothing else about 2023, right? All these prophecies about the Lord's second coming on the clouds, that ends when the Lord's second coming comes. And then after that, we're done. You're not going to see that ever happen again, right? So if we could teach these newcomers properly and deeply, and they could see both of these prophecies working hand in hand and simultaneously, then they'll be able to understand the Bible a lot better too. Right, so that's how I would answer and talk a little bit more deeply about the prophecies in the Bible, right, for that new member's question. The second question comes from a member, and it has to do with this yesterday's pre-dawn message. And the Proverbs are all about evangelism, fulfilling God's will. That if you do not evangelize a single person, you are only fulfilling the individual will, only for yourself. Which means it is fulfilled. You fulfilled it for yourself. You have gained salvation for yourself. However, in order for God's history and God's will to actually be fulfilled, what has to happen? Well, we have to evangelize others. Why? Because God is trying to create heaven on earth. God needs everyone to come to this history, not a single person to go to hell, right? So, when we heard this yesterday's pre-dawn message, the question comes out is, well, then how can I evangelize better, especially when I'm working full time, right? I'm so tired when I get home. What about people who have children? What about people who have families, right? And the answer to this is we just got to remember that evangelism is a very broad word. It's very broad. It extends to many different things in areas that we're able to contribute to. It's not just going out and finding someone, doing a survey and bringing people and connecting them to the Bible study. That's not the only way. It's one of the ways. It's a very powerful way to do it, but we just got to remember that everyone plays a different role in the church, right? And all is necessary. There's going to be the 10 to 15% of the church that are going to be actively, directly working in evangelism. 10 to 15%, right? So if you have 100 people, you're going to have about 10 to 15 people out there constantly meeting people, constantly lecturing them, constantly taking care of them. Like that's going to be, they're very, very active, and that's their role as people who are active in the church. But then you're going to have still 85 to 90% that cannot do it directly, right? And they're going to do it in many other ways, right? So if we look at the active people that are actually going out and doing it, they're going to have evangelists going out to meet people, connect them to the word, right? You'll have lecturers, right? Lecturers that teach them the Bible study. You have people that take care of these people, making sure they're doing well, taking care of them, going out to eat, talking to them, right? And getting close to them and stuff like that too, right? So those are the three that we know. But, Sunday also talks about other things that are just as important. For instance, prayer. Sassi says that each newcomer needs 40 hours of prayer. 40 hours of prayer. And some people got to be the prayer warriors. And that's why Sassi says some people, their mission is to be at church and just pray. And just praying for the newcomers, praying for their pastors, praying for their leaders, praying for Sun's team, praying for this history and stuff like that too, right? That is an actual role of evangelism, right? The hard part is if you don't organize the prayer warriors well, then it's hard to recognize them, because it's not like you're going and listening to their prayers and figuring out how long they've been praying for a certain person. And these prayer warriors, they just pray because that's in their DNA. And what are they going to do? They're going to start praying. They're not going to count how many minutes or how many hours they prayed for all these newcomers and such. They're just praying. Right? And they're not going to be the ones like saying, hey, I prayed like 12 hours for this person. I need some recognition. They're not going to do that. Right? So this is why the organization of these people becomes very important too, as in, let's just say, to organize these people well, like you organize them by assigning them people to pray for how long every day kind of thing. You know what I mean? So that they have a prayer quota. They know exactly who they're praying for. They'll get the information of what this newcomer is about to learn. They'll might even have a chat room for that newcomer so they get updated on what this newcomer is actually doing. You know what I mean? So when you look at this, it's like, oh, okay, that makes a lot, as long as it's organized, then it's easier to recognize these people. And of course, another big one is finance, right? Those that, there are those that evangelize well, those that are lecturing, those that are going out, and, some people can go out and support them. Now, how can you support these people and doing it in the proper way? I think most churches will probably have like a ministry fund, or they'll discuss with their head leaders about how they can take care of the newcomers, take them out to eat. And it doesn't mean that these people have to directly take the newcomers out. They can just give the money so that the people taking care of them and the evangelist or lecturer, whatever it is, can all go out to eat together kind of thing, right? But the biggest thing is the reason why a lot of people don't really know how to contribute to evangelism, and they don't know that they are contributing, is because it's not organized. That's the biggest thing. It's got to be organized. Organized meaning like, hey, if, make an announcement after church. Hey guys, we're starting evangelism groups. For those of you guys who are prayer warriors, we have someone in charge of the prayer warriors, and we're going to assign people to each person. We want to get at least 40 hours of prayer for each of these people. So we're going to assign 3 people for each newcomer, and we're going to make a chat room so you guys can keep logging in your minutes until we reach the 40 hours kind of thing. That's organized. Oh, for those of you guys in finance, those guys who can't go out and evangelize, we know that it's difficult. You have families and this, and this. So you announce, say, this person's in charge of finance. And what we're going to do is we're going to start a ministry fund. And for each person, we're going to give this type of finance to them too, right? To support these people who are going out to evangelize. And that's great, right? But if it's not organized, people who do finance and help with finance and prayer, they're left unrecognized, which means that in their hearts they think that the only way to evangelize is going out to meet people, lecturing, and spending time with these newcomers, which they can't, right? And this is why the organization of evangelism becomes such a big topic that we have to think about. We have to organize it really well so many people are able to take part in the evangelism and also be acknowledged and recognized for it. Like even when I was in New York, that's what we did. We set up groups. There was the finance group, and this group was giving there was almost 30 people. And these 30 people were giving $100 a month, which means there's $3,000 coming in every month just for evangelism. It was incredible. And we used that money to buy gifts for the newcomers. When it comes to the passing ceremonies, for the flowers, all this had to do with newcomers, taking them out to eat, all that kind of stuff, right? And these finance people were in a chat room where they're able to see where their money is going towards, right? That it's going to evangelism. They're assigned a newcomer that they're supporting, so they feel they're directly involved with that newcomer kind of thing. The prayer warriors would also be taken care of, and they would have their rooms praying for these newcomers because they're working and they have other things that they need to do, right? There's a lot of different things that we have to look at and say, if we want real evangelism to happen, it has to take the entire church. There are those that may not be able to give financially, or they may not be very good at prayers or whatever it is, right? And these are the people, this would be less direct, but it's going to be acknowledged in the heavens where they create an atmosphere for evangelism. When they come to church, people are nice to the newcomers. They create an atmosphere that's very friendly, warm, and welcoming, that they make the service so much better. There's a difference between having a service where only a few people are praising with all their hearts, and you can hear the praises reach to the ceiling, right? Or if you have praise that's kind of dead, you know what I mean? That plays a role in evangelism. It's the atmosphere. This is one thing I'm going to tell you guys. The atmosphere of praise in a former faith church is 20 times better than in our churches. The atmosphere is set. And I think that's something that we do have to think about, is we have to create a great atmosphere for evangelism to happen. An atmosphere that promotes evangelism. And that's something I think that will change the way we understand how evangelism actually works. And I think many people can be involved with it, right? So even this week's message, I like how Sunseem spelled out, hey, if you want to build up your righteousness, it even includes admin tasks for church. Even admin work is building up righteousness for God. Cleaning is building up righteousness for God. Working in the Holy Land, doing this and doing all these things that you're doing for God is building up your righteousness, right? So I really hope that that kind of helps us to answer that question about how can we evangelize better? Because we want to be people that fulfill the will not only for myself as an individual, but also for God's entire history and His will. Right? So I hope it's something that really helps you guys out, and it kind of makes you think more deeply about evangelism, and maybe even talk to your church leaders about how you can make evangelism work more structured, in a more structured way. All right? So those are the two questions for today's Q&A Thursday. Hope it's something that open your eyes a little bit more to what is to a lot of the things that people are thinking about. And if you have any questions, guys, go ahead, leave in the comments, DM me, whatever it is, and I can use those questions for next week also. All right, so let's move into the second break of the day.
can't understand the reason why they laugh and smile. They say they do not need the Lord to be satisfied. Without the Lord, I cannot breathe at all. Without the Lord, I cannot live at all. The world keeps chasing joy and happiness they think will last, but they disregard the Lord and His eternal love. Yet as for me, I only want His love. I only want to be the Lord's love. Without Him, I can't live on. I cannot live all alone. All that I breathe is for Him now. He's the center of my life. Though the whole world may change, still my heart will never change. Lord, without you, I cannot live on. Lord, without you, I cannot live on. You've become the reason that I live. Lord, I love you, please stay by my side forevermore. The Lord lives in my heart, and heaven lives within my soul. When I'm with the Lord, I feel like heaven's on the earth. Now because of Him, I have found eternal joy. I am blessed to know this eternal happiness. As the Lord's body, I know I can do anything. As a bride, I preach according to the will of God. So please, my Lord, grant me power, grant me strength. And please, my love, be with me until the end. Without Him, I can't live on. I cannot live all alone. All that I breathe is for Him now. He's the center of my life. Though the whole world may change, still my heart will never change. Lord, without you, I cannot live on. Without Him, I can't live on. I cannot live all alone. All that I breathe is for Him now. He's the center of my life. Though the whole world may change, still my heart will never change. Lord, without you, I cannot live on. Lord, without you, I cannot live on. Oh my Lord, oh
Okay, so let's get into today's last segment on this wonderful Thursday podcast. And for those of you guys who don't know, I always do sermons in the sky. And this allows me to kind of hone my skills of sermon delivery, because I don't know when, I got to be prepared, because I don't know when God's going to call me again to preach or call me again to speak on his behalf. So just to keep my my speaking chops in check, I do this every single Thursday. So let's get into today's sermons in the sky. So I told you guys that I was listening to all these pro athletes that were sharing about their faith, right? They're like saying that, the greatest mentor is Jesus and this and that. And I was listening to one of these interviews, and he said, people take role models because they only see like 2 hours of their life. And it's those 2 hours that it's something that they're super good at. And he was talking about athletes. You see these athletes doing amazing things for 2 hours. And you look at those 2 hours and you're like, whoa, he's the role model. I want to be just like him. But he said, sometimes you fall into that trap and you judge the greatness of someone and their entire life and character by only looking at 2 hours of their life. There's 24 hours a day. So what does the person do with the 22 hours remaining? And it's true. We fall into that trap. Singers, actors, athletes, idols, models. And when you think about these singers, actors, athletes, and such, we're actually only seeing several hours of their life doing something that they're really, really good at. That one thing they do well. And then we judge the rest of their life and think, oh, I want to be just like this person. Oh, so amazing. I want to model my life after them. And when I thought about this, when this person was saying, what do you do with the rest of your 22 hours? I was thinking like, that's the same with the restored Eve, right? We see a few moments of their life and we think, oh, perfection. Everything is right. Everything is the best of the best. And this is why when the news came out, in March, how shocked were we? How could she do? This is impossible. But we base that on looking at 10% of her life and nothing else. But then I thought a little bit more deeply about it, and that's why I realized this is why it's so much easier to trust Sunsigny. Because Sunsigny, he doesn't show us 10%. He shows us 90%. Everything in his life is public. There's nothing hidden. The only time we don't see him is like the 3 to 4 hours that he's sleeping. Why is Sunsigny the best role model? Why is he the person we can trust more than anyone else? It's because he shows us everything. And then I thought even deeper and I said, whoa, but what about us then? This should apply to us too. As I grew up in this history, I kind of got known in Providence because of my lecturing. And because of my lecturing, or because I was funny, or whatever it is, when people found out I was going to be a head leader, like, oh my gosh, this person's going to be so good. But the answer is, you're only basing that on what you saw in my lecturing. People saw me just like an athlete, those 1 or 2 hours where I'm doing the thing I'm best at. It's easy to be at your best when you only have to be at your best for 2 hours of the day. The 22 hours that we don't show is what's going to be the bigger thing. Do you think we'd be shocked if we knew the other 22 hours of the restored Eve's life? Well, no longer the restored Eve, just say KJS, right? Well, what if we saw the other 22 hours? If we saw the last 22 hours of every day of her last 2 years, do you think we'll be shocked? And I think that's the difference between us and God, is God sees it all. He was not going to be as shocked because he saw everything happen, everything develop. Where all we see is the greatest to the lowest. One thing Sunsim said in the past is, he says, people usually say this, like this person's so good, guess what? But their true character will come out when they're at their worst. Their true character is going to come out eventually. And they're talking about people's bad characters, bad things that come out. And it's kind of like how people like to point out other people's faults. But Sunsim says, look at yourself when you are at your best. And that is what is possible. That is what you can be all the time. That's what you have to start looking at. And if we want to be those people that are Christ-like, if we want to be those people who are really trusted in this history, it's kind of living that life like Sunsim is, hey, guess what? Let me show you the other 22 hours of my day. And then, the 2, 3, 4 hours, those are unseen. Why? Because I'm sleeping. We need to live that life that we can be proud of, saying that we are people of God. Not the people who show the best for those few hours, but then when you go home, you feel so lacking, like, I really hope people don't see what I do here. People really don't know who I am. I'm not that great. We need to reach that point. Can you live the life where the rest of your 22, everyone's going to look at you and say, this person's awesome. This person really is that type of person. This person's not just someone who performs their role really well, but they're a true role model. One interesting thing that this interviewer said was, he says, there's a lot of people that, like, a lot of people look up to this person as a role model, but you only saw them for 2 hours. They're not role models. They're people who are modeling a role. Who do we trust? The person we see 22 hours of the day? Or the person we see 2, 3 hours of the day? And this is where our hearts have to go. We can't trust one person over the other because they're better looking. We can't trust one person over the other because they're pretty or because they're rich or because they speak better. Those aren't the reasons to trust someone. And if we really, really want God to trust us, God is going to look at the 22 hours, not the 2. What are you doing during the day? What are you doing when no one's looking? And I hope that we can become those types of people where God looks and says, yeah, I trust this person. Just like he trusted Job. Yeah, you know what? Do what you want with Job. Do what you want, because I trust him. This is the person that I know. And I hope that all of us too, it's one of those famous verses in the Bible. When the 10 virgins, there was 5 of them that were foolish, eventually came knocking on the door of the wedding banquet. And they said, let us in. And what did Jesus say? I do not know you. God will know us from those 22 hours and how close and how tight we are and how much we're united with him. So I really hope that all of us will take in that mindset and not look for the 2 hours, but let's look for the 22. A friend of mine was saying that, hey, these sermons in the sky, they're they're inspiring. It makes us think really deeply, but then you just cut it off. Maybe you should just end with the prayer. And I was like, you know what? That's a good idea. If it is a true sermon, it should end with the prayer. So let me pray to end today's Sermons in the Sky. Almighty God, Holy Spirit, to our Lord Jesus, we are so grateful and thankful because we are not left with someone who's just modeling some type of role that we see only 2 hours a day. We have the ultimate role model, someone we see at every moment. When we're there for 4 hours, another group comes and sees him for another 5. And then when they leave, another group comes to see him for another 5. Until he's exhausted and he goes to sleep. God, you don't send us this person so that we can just look in awe and amazement. Wow, who is this person? Wow, how amazing is this person? But you send that person as a true role model so that we can live just like him. I pray that you'll bless every person that is listening to today's sermon, that you'll give them power and strength. Help them, Lord God, in their 22 hours of life. Help them so that they can overcome themselves, develop themselves into people that are truly Christ-like. Thank you for blessing us with the words. Thank you for bringing us into this history. We pray that all of us, as we come back another week, that we will become that much better than the week before. We thank you. We pray all these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. All right. So, that's the first time we're praying after a Sermons in the Sky, which I think was probably the best thing to do from the beginning. But I hope that you guys really enjoyed it. Please leave a comment below if there's anything that made you think about. But I hope it's something that all of us can put deep into our hearts, realizing that this is a history, not of the 2 hours. This is a history of the 22. So I pray that everyone will really have an amazing and awesome Thursday. And we'll see you guys again tomorrow. And I'll be in Georgia, but we'll see you guys tomorrow on the Morning Star Drive on 117.8.
It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
I'm glad